viewers of our broadcast, if not all by now, know about the New World Order and the complete globalist takeover plans. But not everyone that knows about the New World Order understands or even believes the satanic aspect of the New World Order. Nicholson 1968 is what I would call a master decoder who's been exposing this for over 10 years now, well over 10 years. And he does an incredible job of linking the New World Order agenda, the transhumanist agenda, to the coming Antichrist and what the enemy wants to do where taking over the human being and altering our DNA is concerned. So he's going to join us today and share his incredible insight. We'll be back with Nicholson 1968 right after this quick word from one of our partners.
Showtime.
We're joined now by Nicholson, also known as Nicholson 1968. You may be familiar with his work on YouTube, now also being uploaded to Rumble because YouTube is no longer a free speech platform, or some may argue it never was. Nicholson, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a while since I've done a podcast. You are the first podcast I've done in probably a year. So I saw your email and I said, okay, it's time. It's time to get back to doing podcasts. So I appreciate you having me on.
Well, I'm really honored to have you. I think your work is astounding, and you've been at it for so long. For those that aren't familiar with your work, Nicholson's been really ahead of the game for many, many years, producing extremely detailed content about the transhumanist agenda, and so much of what he was saying years ago, people are realizing now. And so I guess first and foremost, Nicholson, talk us through a little bit about your background, how you got started doing this, and then we'll talk about the agenda itself.
How I got started, and I just want to let the viewers tonight know, is when I went down this journey, and the stuff that I was sharing over the years, I've been sharing over years, I was the biggest skeptic. I just went looking for truth. What started the journey was 9/11, and I watched a video, documentary, Loose Change. And when I watched that, and what I do in the real world for my job deals with a lot of chemicals, and we'll just say that background. And a lot of the stuff that was said in the media about 9/11, about jet fuel and stuff like that, I was like, there's no way. There's this story that we're being told about 9/11. We've been lied to. Now, what that official story is, I don't know all the details, but I know that a lot of it was just lies upon lies. So I said to myself, okay, if I've been deceived about 9/11, what else have we been deceived about by the mainstream media? And that's kind of what started my journey. There's a video that's been taken down, but it's back up on my website. It's called Nicholson Gets Personal, and it has to do with the dream of 1XX1, which is the Roman numerals 9/11 that I was shown in a dream years and years ago, but I did not know what those Roman numerals were shown to me for until later, and it'll show you what is built into the 9/11. It has to do with DNA and things like that, and that started my journey was 9/11. And so I started going down the path, and I studied the Quran. I studied Mormonism, Hinduism. I got into all religions, and a lot of people have a problem with that sometimes. They're like, why are you doing that? You need to just do Christianity. Well, to know your enemy, you need to study everything, and kind of, just because I was born in the United States, and Christianity at that time was the majority, I wanted to see what the other, was about. So I studied everything, but there was one thing that was really came clear to me was this Jesus Christ guy. Everything I was studying, from secret societies and Freemasonry, everything, they did not like this guy. There was something about this guy. There was no attacks on Buddha, all of these other religions. It was Jesus Christ. And I'm like, wow, so that kind of kind of threw me back. And then I started reading the Christian Bible, like I was studying all the other stuff. But what I found and what really connected was that the Christian Bible was actually talking about the stuff that I'm talking about, transhumanism, and about the wheat and the tares, that in the end, they look alike on the outside, but only the angels and God know the inside. And see, there's a way the church, they interpret the word a certain way. There's certain things in scripture that they don't teach. They don't talk about I mean, how many times you walked into church and they talk about Nephilim from Genesis 6:4, the Nephilim or six? They don't
I
talk
don't know
about
if I
that. They
can
don't.
recall a time.
Uh, uh, I mean, ask your preacher about, here's one of them, 1 Corinthians 6:3, where it says, Jesus says, know not that you will judge angels one day. So he's telling humans you're going to judge angels. Well, then you got to figure out, why are we going to why are humans going to judge angels? And they can't be good angels because they're good angels. They're the bad angels. That there's so many things that I've said, and people on my website know this. To get from A to D, you have to understand B and C. You just can't come there. Well, you can there now, but back then you just couldn't come there and talk about They can't even pronounce transhumanism, spell transhumanism. I mean, you couldn't understand. And that's kind of the way the Bible is. There's things in the Bible that have been twisted, and I'm not a preacher. I'm not a seminary guy. I'm just a guy that was looking for truth, that was shown some things. And like I said, to get to A to D, you have to understand B and C. And so you have to ask yourself, let's get to the angels. We're going to judge bad angels. And you need to find out, what did the bad angels do that we got to judge them? And that speaks to Jude. That's where I found it. Jude 1:6, the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation. They left where God put them, the watchers over humanity. They left and they came down, which goes to Genesis 6:4, and commingled. And a lot of people don't want to believe that. That scares them. And
Well,
but
they also
it
think
leads
it's
to
not
the
possible. They also think
it's
it's not
not
possible.
possible. It's not possible. And but there's many stories. See, they want to be Christians and they want to believe in the Bible, but just they want to cherry pick the Bible. There's many stories in the Bible where angels came down and took physical form. You can't have it both ways. They either can take physical form or they can't. And it's one or the other. And that's what they do. Like, they throw the book of Jasher out. They say it's not inspired. But the actual canon Bible speaks to it in Samuel 1:16. Is it not written in the book of Jasher? So here's the thing. You've got an inspired book saying, isn't it written in the book of Jasher, which the book of Jasher was taken out. And the reason why it was taken out, and it's like, and you've talked to so many people on your podcast, the reason Jasher was taken out, it speaks of mixing animal and human DNA and so many other things of what's going on now, where we're at, of the mixing and DNA and whatever. They don't want you knowing about that. So that was my thing was, Jesus said one time in the Bible, he said, come to me like a little child. And I never understood it. I'm like, what do you mean? You want me to come on my knees crying like a little child or whatever? And I never understood that for years. But then it spoke to me. A child doesn't know. A child is a clean slate. Come to me without prejudice, without doctrine, all the stuff you've been told from this world. Come to me. And that's what I had to do. And it was very, very hard, Maria. It was very hard because everything that I was watching, mainstream media, churches, you have to kind of put that on the shelf because a lot of people think you're correct. Of course, they thought I was crazy in the beginning, and even my family. But in the last 5 years, my family has come back and I like apologize and like, okay, we see it now. It's, because it's very hard because of the way they do. And I did also a video called Parallels. And what happens is, you ever seen Star Trek, Captain Kirk with the flip phone?
Yes.
Okay. That came out 15 years before there was even a flip phone. George Jetson on the Jetsons was doing a treadmill. Treadmill came 20 years later. What happens is the stuff that's happening now, they don't want the people thinking it's real. They want you to think it's a movie and science fiction. That's why they do what they do. It's a parallel going. They've got movies coming, Iron Man, Man of Steel, where the heart's taken out of Iron Man and replaced with something else. All of those things, it's very deceptive. And people either get scared and don't want to believe in that and they just stop. They stop learning. They don't want to know about it. It scares them. And then you have people that push through, like yourself. And more people are pushing through, especially during COVID, because they were at home, they had time on their hands, they knew something wasn't right with the COVID. It's obvious, I'm not Democrat or Republican. It doesn't matter to me because it's all theater. But if people out there think that if Biden's making decisions for the United States, I don't know what to tell you. This guy can't walk upstairs. He can't complete paragraphs. I'm not dissing. I'm just saying, I'm stating facts. I'm not telling you which way or another. But so a lot of things like that.
You mentioned something which I'd just like to address. You spoke about
Yeah.
the symbolism in the movies. For anyone who isn't familiar with your content, I really do encourage them to go and watch your videos. They're like mini documentaries, every video. And you have this gift of really decoding the information that's being given to us. And once you start to see these videos, and once your eyes are opened, and I'm sure many people watching this would agree, all of a sudden the symbolism becomes so obvious. Like I don't know about you, you're probably the same. Actually, you would be. You can sit down to watch a movie these days, and all you're doing is decoding. There's very, it's hard to enjoy.
And I hate that sometimes.
Of course, it's hard to enjoy entertainment, but at the end of the day, you become, you're not immune to the propaganda, but it's there. It's like a shield where you are educated, so you're almost protecting yourself by understanding this stuff.
And that's a good point. That's the other thing is they have a language all their own, and that's what I was showing was part of their language. They talk backwards, number symbolism. Once you figure that out, it's good that you're aware of it, but it's scary because and I'll do some examples. Like I can say to you, they do double speak. They're like, I won't sin. Now, depending on how you're taught to hear that, I won't sin, it's either I will not sin, I won't sin, or you want it, I won't sin. But the thing is, I said one statement, I did not change it. It's just how you're taught how to hear it and perceive it. Here's another one. 66 add a 6. What do you get? Now, of course, your viewers and you will probably get what I'm going to say, but most people, like if I walked out and said, hey, what's 66 add a 6? They're going to go 72. But elite, 66 add a 6, 666. Didn't change the statement, didn't change how I said it. It's how you perceive it.
Correct.
And so what will happen is mainstream media and whatever, they're saying one thing and they're talking to themselves and they have their own language, but most of the majority of people are hearing a whole other thing. They have no idea what is going on, and what is being told. When Beyonce comes out and does certain things and puts things in place, the mainstream media goes, oh, she's on a red horse on June 16th at this. And that's all they see. Oh, that's nice. But then it's a signal to the elite. The red horse means war. There's war coming. Guess what? Ukraine broke out. And the Russia thing. It's so, I hadn't told you this, but my first YouTube channel was called Lighting the Way Out of the Dark. That was my first YouTube channel. And I figured out that the Pope, Ratzinger, he was going to step down. And that's never been done. And everybody was like, yeah, whatever. And I only had I'm serious. I had probably 100 subscribers. And it happened. It happened like 2 months later when I told them, and they took my channel down, everything. And then I came back up. And then that's when it started. I started really kind of getting kind of a following of like, okay, whatever this guy was saying, he was right on. So he popped back up as Nicholson 1968. And I'll explain this to the viewers too. Some of my older videos, I never was on camera and I never spoke. It was all text and pictures and catchy music or whatever, because what I was shown is to catch these viewers on YouTube at that time, it had to be quick, impressive, catch my attention, that kind of thing. And because what I was being shown was for the future of these young people, I didn't have an idea it was going to move this fast, but I was trying to catch young viewers of like, okay, this is going to be in your lifetime. I did not think at that time it was going to be, I mean, like it is now. So when you see some of my first videos, my first video was the mark of the beast is not the RFID chip. It's just a stepping stone to get you to put things in your body, get us used to that. Sold as safety, whatever that may be. A lot of people thought, nope, that, you know, the mark of the beast is this, is that they had this preset thing.
Yes.
And they thought I was crazy. Now let's fast forward.
So
Now
actually,
they go,
some time
okay,
ago, they thought that the mark was the chip in your credit card. You know, there's been multiple times in history where people have thought that it was the mark. Never before have people had the understanding like we do now that this is far more complex than we initially thought.
right. And so as I did a radio show, and it was on Scariest Movie Ever, or KJ Osborne. I don't know if you're familiar with his work. Big YouTuber. He decodes things as well. And I went on his show and spoke for the first time. And the reason I didn't speak and show myself on a video was, one, I didn't want you to judge me because, okay, he's a white guy. And there's people that may don't want to listen to a white guy. The way that I speak, it's a Southern United States from the South. I have a twang, and I didn't want people to click off and go, okay, here's a white guy, Southern. I wanted them to just get the information. So I started that way. But then when I did the radio show, it blew up. They're like, Nicholson, you've got to come on and talk to your videos at least and help explain. And you'd be so much better doing that. So I switched doing that so I would speak. But I still have not been on camera on any of my films or documentaries, but I mean, I may, but I just want to explain that when you see some of my older stuff, I'm not speaking. That was the reason I did it. It just progressed over time on that.
Well, I think it's amazing. I just brought up the library on YouTube just before for the viewers. You know, over 200 videos there alone of over the years, and you can go back 10 years, you know, of you documenting this stuff and really just educating people on this. But what we were facing, I mean, we've always been facing the same thing, but people's understanding has changed. Where we are right now, and I often say this to people, Nicholson, because I conduct some interviews that are really out there, and where synthetic biology is concerned, for example, the most recent.
Yeah.
And people say, come on, they'd love you to think they have this technology. It is just so beyond what they're capable of, which I understand that thinking, but they're actually far beyond what we even understand.
They're way beyond that. And programmable matter, call it whatever you want, synthetic biology. They showed it to you in Transformers. But, you know, like I said, some of the stuff I did not want to believe. Most of my information, you know, I've gotten from ex-Masons that got out when they got to that top level. Like, wait a minute, you know, Lucifer is not the light, you know, and, you know, I'm very careful at what I put out because I don't want to mislead anybody. You know, I don't want to put them down a path, anything like that. And I have to say, you know, I'm still here. I've seen YouTubers come and go that said, you know, RFD chip is the mark, the chip in your card, the barcodes on the back of your cans with the, you know, those things. And what happens is their channel can't stand up because if you go back and look at their stuff, they're like, wait a minute, they're completely wrong on, you know, the mark or whatever it may be. And I've always been about, look, God created, the creator created everything with sound, frequencies, tones. There's no, he didn't physically do anything. He just spoke stuff into existence. And here's the key, and it's kind of simple, is a couple of things. God has his own tone and he has his own frequencies for his children to hear him. And if you're the enemy and you don't want them communicating, what do? You jam the frequencies. 5G, do whatever. You're jamming. We're being totally jammed the frequencies where you can't, I mean, that's what's going on. That's number one. The other thing, the biggest
Can I
mystery.
just say this? Sorry, Nicholson, I don't mean
Yeah.
to cut in. There are a lot of people who think when you start talking about things like frequencies and energy and things of this nature that it's moving into the New Age realm. No, that's not the case. This is giving people a scientific understanding for what's happening in the true spiritual realm. I'm not talking about New Age spiritualism, the true spiritual realm. Everything does operate through frequencies, words. Words have power. This is why they're inverting the meaning of words right now, because they know the power of words. Yes.
Yeah, words, spelling,
correct.
spelling. I mean, it's, I tell people, well, I don't see this. I don't believe this. I don't whatever. Look, do you believe in? Can you hear your radio? Oh yeah. Okay. Do you see the radio waves? Well, no. Well, guess what? Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And it's just like their language that we're talking about. Just because you don't understand the way the secret societies, their language operate, doesn't make it like I don't speak Chinese, but if I go to a Chinese man and say, hey, your language doesn't exist, no, it's just I don't understand that language. That's why the elites are taught, what the way they're taught, where George Bush's of the world, the Skull and Bones guys. I mean, just we can go on and on and on. I mean, that's just the way it is. So you made a good point. Frequencies are very. I think there's more to tones and frequencies than we are being told and led. Obviously, and I think that's one of the reasons. I think Tesla was taken down or taken out, or the way they treated him with his technologies, and that's debatable, but, so the other thing was the biggest mystery to me that I think is totally obvious is most Christians believe in a third temple being built in Israel, and that according to scripture, Christ is going to return to that temple, or an antichrist is going to walk into that temple and declare himself to be, God or Jesus. And that is people are looking for that. But what I found was that the enemy tells you, and I'm going to read this to you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The enemy is clear. He tells you what he wants in Daniel 2. I think it's sweet. I want to make sure. Oh, it's 2 Thessalonians 2:4. He wants to set himself up as God in the temple of God, declaring himself to be God. So the enemy just told you where he wants to be. He wants to be in the temple of God, declaring himself to be God. And then you have to go, what does Jesus say about the temple of God? And then that's where you hit 1 Corinthians 3:16. He says, don't you know you are the temple of God? So the enemy and that was the thing too in the beginning, the enemy just told you what they wanted to do. And then you have to figure out where the temple of God is. And I figured out where the temple of God is. And it's I thought it was pretty obvious, but you go into a church, most churches, they have no clue about what I'm just saying here. So you've got an enemy trying to set itself up in humanity, and so then that led me down the road of the mark of the beast, and the mark has to do with DNA. And that's where it really got really deep. And then my viewership really went up, was connecting actual science DNA to the word of God. And like, oh, wait, nobody has made that connection like I was doing. If they have, I didn't see it at that point. I didn't see anybody doing it, because you've got one or the other. You had people that were just scientists and didn't believe in God. And then you had the other that was all God and no science. So they never connected. And what I did was I connected the two.
Well,
And
let's
even,
talk about some of that connection,
yeah,
if you will, the
yeah.
how you got to understanding that the mark of the beast had to do with DNA.
On my website, nicholson1968.com, and I had to, that came later as well. So I have more people on my website now than I do on YouTube because YouTube took down my last 8 videos. So there's 8 videos that are not on YouTube that are on my website. Um, I mean, that are recent in the last year or two. So, but anyway, on my website, there's a place called How to Count the Mark of the Beast. And how I came to this is it's kind of complicated, but it's deep. But I told you I had earlier, I had a dream. And usually when I have a dream, I write down in a pad what the dream is or whatever it may be. And let me see if I can get this going here. And it was the 1XX1. So in the dream, I saw I wrote down in a pad 1XX1 and didn't know what that was at the time. And I wrote it down. And about 3 years later, I moved. And when I was unpacking, I brought that up. And it was, I wrote this down in 1998. And then 9/11 happened in 2001. And I brought this back up and I was like, 1XX1, what's that in Roman numerals? I looked it up and I was like, oh my goodness, that was 9/11. Was somebody trying to tell me something? I'm like, at that time, I was like, wow, that was weird. Three years ahead of time. So I didn't think much about it. I didn't think about it, but I was studying about the mark of the beast and DNA and some stuff like that. And a lot of people, and this is controversial, most people, I don't hear from God audibly. Only a couple of times I've heard his voice just clearly. Kind of scared me, but it caught me off guard. And I'm driving down the road and clear as day, it says, this voice says, put my son's cross over it, times it, add it, you'll get answers and much more. I'm like, what in the world? I mean, so I did not make the connection. I'm telling you, I had no idea what that was talking about. So probably 6 months down the road, I'm looking at this again. I'm studying 9/11 or whatever. And what I did was I said, you know what? Let me put a cross over the 9/11 and watch, I'll show you this. So I put a cross over it. And you'll see here in a second. And you're going to see it's amazing. There's no way I could have figured this out. So I put a cross over it right here.
Yes.
Watch. Okay. Then what happens is it makes four sets of numbers.
Yes.
Now, when I was when I was studying all kinds of stuff in the occult and everything, and all of their magic, they have a formula that is at the core of everything. As above, so below. That's at the core of all their magic. And so when I put the cross over it, as above, so below, then it started the numbers. See, 4, 6, and 4, 6. Okay, just hang with me. Okay, see how that is? 4, 6, and then it's down 4, 6, as above, so below. And I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? So when I was studying DNA and chromosomes in the body, here's what's fascinating about it is in the human body, we have 46 autosomes. And you have 22. I'm going to try to explain this to the viewers. You have 22 on each side of your body, base pairs. So that's 44 base pairs. Now the X and the Y determine your sex, if you're a female or a male. So you have 22 strands that go up and down the body of autosomes, right? What the elite want to do, what I found out, Freemasons, and specifically Skull and Bones, what they're trying to do, and they're trying to do it right now, they're trying to get it to cleave together. They want another 22 strands of technology, whether it be nanotech, call it whatever you want. They want to see, we're double helix human beings right
Yes.
now. If you're born that way, a normal from a man and a woman, you're a double helix, and they want to get the third strand to connect. That's why when you look at the DNA commercial for the have you seen the DNA commercial for the phone where I can show you this too.
I don't remember the DNA commercial, but I remember the Queen. And you can probably remind me, Nicholson.
Mm-hmm.
She there was a ceremony, and the lights lit up to a tree, and it was a triple helix.
It was a triple helix, and that's what they're going after. And that triple helix is the key to where they want humanity, so they can control it. Now I'm going to take it further, and 3 strands of 22. That is actually the skull and bones secret number, and that's exactly what it means. People can assume it's this or that. No, the 322 speaks to the triple helix, three strands of 22 autosomes in a human body. Okay, now
And
notice
people,
also,
and sorry if I could pause you there,
yeah,
because when you are putting this stuff together, and if
mm-hmm,
people haven't actually spent the time studying occult, I have, by the way, and
mm-hmm,
the significance of numbers to these people, and it sounds a bit, out there for you to think, oh, well, why is Nicholson drawing this comparison between this and this? It's so random. Well, how much more random is it to just have the number 322 under the skull and bones? What does that actually
exactly.
mean to them? Do you know? So it's really important to note that every single thing that they do, because they believe so much in symbolism, and you may not, but they do.
They do, exactly. And even God is so good that he's even warned you in what they're talking about. And let's take Genesis 3:22, right? Look what it says. And the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. So basically, God is saying right here, this is not the way to live forever. They must not be allowed to reach out. This is why they picked 322 as well. They're mocking God. They are going to try to reach out and live forever another way. It's called transhumanism. You see the connection?
Yes.
I mean, now here's the other thing. Most stuff is what we said, a cult is they do stuff backwards. And usually if you reverse it, it's the correct way when they do numbers. And if you reverse 2 times 23 is 46. What did I tell you that a normal human being is made up of autosomes is 46.
Yes.
3 times 22 is 66. Okay. That is, look, 2, 66. That's what they want. That's the wrong way. Whatever the wrong way is, reverse it. You'll usually get the correct answer, because
Right.
that's what they're doing. They're doing that complete opposite. Okay. Now I'm going to take it even further. This may be controversial to you, but let me go back to the dream. Okay, 9/11, as above, so below. And then you've got 2 sets of numbers. Now, there's 44. When Adam was created, he only had 44 chromosomes. What do you mean he had 4? Remember this. There was no need for a sex organ. Because remember, Eve was not created yet. So he took a rib. Now I'm going to tell you what a rib means. If you ask the scientist what a rib means, I don't know if you can see this on the thing. In the middle of DNA, the word DNA, deoxyrib, how do you say that word? Say it. That's right.
Ribonucleic acid.
That's right. In the middle of the word is rib. He took some DNA out of Adam and he created Eve. And then it made it 46. Now look what this is. 44 was the first temple. 46 is the second temple. The third temple is what this is Satan is trying to create with 66. Now, how does this get to the mark of the beast? 666. And this is how they do it. This is how they do things.
So just on
Go
that,
ahead.
people may think,
Yeah.
because my initial thought was, oh, well, that's kind of a stretch, because of the word rib, right? Because I am a skeptical person, Nicholson. It's my gift.
Where all are. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but even even if you look at it from the perspective of, well, even the physical transfer of a rib is still is still DNA.
Still
That's still
DNA.
DNA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when he notice that he put him to sleep, it's just like he's the great surgeon. He put Adam to sleep, went in, took some DNA out, created another. He created a helpmate for him, which was Eve. So there's no way, that, I mean, all of this stuff was shared with me from the Holy Spirit. And like I said, I didn't want to believe any of this, but this even gets deeper is, so you got 66, 6 times 6 is 36, 3 sixes. You see where I'm going with that? That's how they do their math. And here's the other thing that everywhere that is mentioned in the Bible about the mark of the beast, it says this: it must be calculated.
Yes.
Everywhere it has to be. It's not going to be out in the open. So Satan is not going to walk up with a pitchfork, a T-shirt says 666 on it. It's just not going to be that obvious. And that's just the way it is. It has to be calculated. It has to be figured out. And that's when it says, here is wisdom. Let those who have understanding, because it's not going to be that easy. So, and I have this on here. This is,
but it also
kind of
says it's a number of a man.
Yep, it's a number of a man, which is DNA. But if you change the DNA of a man and you make him a beast, then there you go. That's what they're trying to do, is change the DNA of a man to make him a controlled beast, which is his name. Now, here's the other thing. I don't know. I don't have this video, but I don't know if you remember, if you can find it. There was a video where George Bush was on a show with John Kerry, and they were both running for president on Hardball. And he came on and he asked them about the secret number. I don't know if you remember that. And George Bush started laughing. He started laughing about it. And then he got really serious and he says, well, he's not running for president. Now, notice what he just said. This guy is interviewing George Bush and asking him about the number 322. And he starts kind of jokingly laughing. And then he stops laughing and he says, well, he's not running for president. You see the connect? That he just referred to the number as a person, a name. That's where, if you're not paying attention, the elites were, but it's plain as day. And then 4 months later, I think, what's his name? I forgot his name. He died. Later. I don't know if that was, because he asked about the number. I don't think he was supposed to ask about the number, but it is what it is. But I'm going to take it a little further on 9/11. You remember the voice said the voice said to me, times it and add it.
Yes.
And I don't have a calculator in front of me, but let me see if I can do it here.
Sure.
44. See, hang on a minute. I turned off my calculator here, but if you times 44 times 66, what do you get? So 44 times 66 equals 2904. Then add 46 and 46. See, there's two 46s there, which is, you get 2,996, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go to Wikipedia right now, and you look up 9/11 attacks, how many deaths for 9/11? 2,996 to the T.
Yes.
Remember the voice said to me, times it, add it, you'll get more than answers. So you've got 9/11 Roman numerals, put my son's cross over it, times it and add it, and you get 2,996, the exact deaths of people that died in 9/11. The other thing, you can't get away from is, if you add 44 and 66 together, you get 110. The Twin Towers are exactly 110 stories high. There's so much built into that. It's ridiculous. I mean, and when people saw this is one of the reasons why my channel went up in viewership, is I'm not that smart. I mean, there's no way I can there was no way I could figure that out. So you follow me, the 44 and the 66. Now here's the last thing. 9/11 was also done for a reason, to have Christianity battling Islam, which is the Quran. Okay. Now on the left is 44 and on the right is 66. You see that? How many books are in the Christian Bible? 66.
Yes.
And okay, in the Quran, there are chapters, 114. 11 times 4 is 44. It's built in to the 9/11, 44 verse the 66. It's all in there. I mean, there's so many things that was built in there and shown to me of this is why they pulled off 9/11. They want the move towards DNA and the final temple, and they wanted Islam versus Christianity, and the two biggest religions at that time battling each other.
And it worked.
And it did. It absolutely did. And you had bin Laden, all that crazy stuff that didn't, whatever. I mean, that's all for show. That was all theater.
Yes, absolutely. And again, this is what they do. They believe in numbers. They use symbols. They use moon cycles. They are the ones that are doing this. Rituals. It's all about their rituals. It has a lot of significance for them because they're practicing in dark arts. They're practicing this ancient form of mysticism that depends on all of these things to be perfectly, it's not like God's power that supersedes anything and can create a miracle or make a miracle occur. This is, calculated following processes and things like that in order to achieve their result in accordance with what they want to bring about. That's the difference with the occult practices.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't believe that. I didn't want to believe that in the beginning. And you said this before, I'm going to say it again, is you may not believe it, but they do. So, and the art of war is know thy enemy. And so, and that was the thing for me is I got to know thy enemy. What's going on? And I wasn't getting it in the church. The church, they're preaching about Jesus Christ. I get it, and the grace of Jesus Christ. But when it comes to the enemy and the mark of the beast and things that you need to know of the end times, I mean, if they're not talking about certain things, it was just like, okay, you don't know the enemy.
Let me ask you this because I know my answer. Do you know anyone who is skeptical of the government, skeptical of the world around them, loves Jesus, and knows or has some understanding about the New World Order that went ahead and got the poison shot? The poison COVID shot.
Oh, if they knew about New World Order, they knew all that stuff, they didn't get the jab. They tried to stay away from it. Yep, exactly.
So
is that your answer too?
Well, yes, because the point is, the way we protect ourselves against the attacks that do come on this earth is to know what the enemy's up to. Now, you don't have to be religious to have avoided the shot, and we won't go into, religious and whatever. You know what I mean by that. You don't have to believe in God to have avoided the shot. But the reality is that anyone who does believe in God and didn't avoid the shot had no understanding of the New World Order, and they didn't protect themselves against this absolute assault on their DNA.
Right. Exactly. I mean, just if you just like I said, if you weren't even religious and if you just studied the attack on our body, I mean, when even from RNA is an operating system basically. And then you start understanding why Bill Gates was involved. Why is Bill Gates involved in getting everybody vaccinated? Well, Bill Gates is creator of operating systems, Windows, and that an operating system in your body. And so I think that's one of the reasons my channel's kind of skyrocketed is you don't have to be religious or spiritual to understand what's going on with the attack on humanity. So you have a good point, with chemtrails, Project Bluebeam, all the things that a lot of people don't believe in. But when you connect, I describe it on my channel as they're like, no, this conspiracy is too big. And it's kind of like a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Just bear with me, the bad analogy, but there are people that are working on the jelly, and there's people working on the peanut butter, and there's people working on the bread. And only the elite know what they're making. They know they're making a peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but the people making jelly, they have no idea about all the other stuff. Like people are doing the chemtrails and people doing, you know what I'm saying? It's just, it's compartmentalized basically. And that's why this is a hard conspiracy to get people to get their head around, because they're not putting all the pieces together. And there's people like you and me now and so many others now that are putting it together, especially since COVID, where people were stuck at home watching YouTube and trying to, and it kind of was researching and some stuff that wasn't making sense. So they've kind of a whole nother level of being awake. I say everybody's waking up at different levels, you know, because I still have people that come to my channel like, hey, Nicholson, have you ever heard of transhumanism? Like, where you been the last 15, 20 years, man? I've been, you know, but they don't know. I mean,
But
it's
they
all
don't
different
know, of
levels, you know.
course. Of course, of course. I mean, I am learning every single day. And there are things about,
Yeah.
particularly the synthetic biology stuff. I knew that that was the plan, but I never understood really all the different elements to how they are achieving this and what they've been doing for more than just before the shots and, through the food, through the air. But you mentioned Project Bluebeam and chemtrails, and a lot of people don't understand how the two are linked. And I want to get into that with you.
It's basic. I mean, it's to me, um, if you know what's involved in 3D holographic holograms and what's the products, barium and strontium, that kind of thing, when you start looking at when they started spraying the sky and you start, I mean, there's people that come out with NASA and things finding that in the chemtrails that they're spraying. Then you start making the connection about Project Bluebeam. And basically what I know of Bluebeam is just there. And that's why the alien agenda, there's no aliens. It's Nephilim. That's why it was so important for Genesis 6:4 of understanding interdimensional beings of the Nephilim, is they're trying to get you to believe in aliens. That I believe aliens have, they're coming here, they have the answers, they have things that can cure humanity, the technology, whatever that is. But then Bluebeam can take it even further. I've even, they're going to project that Jesus Christ is coming back or whatever that may be. But a lot of deception playing in using the sky as a projection, basically, So I believe that the alien agenda has been coming. I had that on my channel as well, is that's why they're trying. I mean, you walk into a church, how many people believe in aliens and how many people know about the Nephilim, the Nephilim, however you pronounce it. It's depending on part of the world that you come from, how you pronounce it. But a lot of people know about aliens. They'll raise their hands, but Nephilim, they have no clue. And that should tell you something.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah. I mean,
it's that awareness.
So, I mean,
it's that understanding. I was criticized by so many believers for understanding conspiracies or even looking into them, because I've been aware of them for so many years, and I would try to wake members of my church up and even church leaders up and talk about this stuff. I was for years I was trying to talk to them about it, and many of those people who dismissed me as crazy are now injected. And I'm not saying that the injections are necessarily a death sentence, but I'm saying you are not immune to the propaganda of the world. You will fall into deception, and you must protect yourself against that deception with the truth. The truth is the antidote to the deception. However, Nicholson, a lot of people do feel that it is overwhelming, especially when you look at, when you start to dig into the corruption of human flesh, the days of Noah, why these two things are linked to today. And it becomes really overwhelming for people. In fact, one of my interviews recently with Celeste Solum, if anyone's watching this now and didn't watch that, please go and watch it. One viewer said, this was one of the darkest interviews I've ever watched. I struggled to work the next day and I had to go home and hug my wife. I mean, this is the kind of effect that it has on people. So What do you recommend that people do with that?
Um, Definitely get into the Word and read, and you pray, you thank God. Um, you don't watch news as much as, I mean, I haven't watched news in a long, long time. Um, that's the thing, is you just stay away from the propaganda as much as you can. Spend time with your family. Uh, whether it be reading the Word or reading a book, play games with your family, do those kinds of things. I mean, if you're watching news and stuff like that, I mean, it's like negative, negative, negative. It's just crazy. And I have to stay away that from myself. And bear with me, Marie. Like, my internet's kind of acting up
Oh,
right
that's all
now,
right.
so
That's
so.
okay. That's all
But
right.
hopefully you can still see me. But
Yes.
that's my thing, is just stay prayed up. And like I said, when I first started on this journey, I I didn't want to believe any of this, and there was something about Jesus Christ that, he's the truth, the way, and the life. I mean, that's the whole thing of follow him. He came here as a man. He died as a man to overcome death. You don't try to become a better man. You don't become a transhuman to live forever another way. That's kind of the way the pattern is. And that's why the whole thing with the Freemasons, they want to be free from what? They don't want to do it from the Creator's way and the Son's way. They want to live forever this way. So,
I saw something on your
just,
channel recently about the cornerstone that the builders rejected. And
yeah,
I'd read that so many times and thought, that's mankind, um, rejecting Jesus as the cornerstone, the very foundation of our existence. But it's also about the Masons, the builders, you know.
right. Because think about it. In the Bible, they always refer to a race of people, the Corinthians or whatever. This is the first time he refers to an occupation, builders. What are Masons? They're builders. And they're the ones, and that's the secret sanctity within Masonry. Masons are builders. That's why you see like Solomon's construction, things like that. They love Solomon. They don't love David. They love Solomon. Um, they know how to do the building of buildings, but the inner sanctum, when you get to 33, they're talking about this temple, rebuilding this temple, a physical body building temple. And that's the inner secret of Freemasonry when you get to the top.
And this goal of mixing iron with clay, um, this is really where we're at now. And, we know that that plan eventually won't succeed. But
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
how much further, based on what you've researched, how much further is this going to get?
Fortunately, it's got to go a little bit further with the technology of the mixing, trying to mix it a little bit more. There's going to be probably another push beyond COVID to scare us a little more with, the safety. So that's where it's going. How soon, I do not know. I mean, I'm surprised it's here now in 2023. When I started this, I thought it was going to be way, way in the future, but it's, going so fast. But, even on the back of I'm going to go back to the Mason thing. Earlier I spoke to you about 66 add a 6 is 72 or 666. On the back of of the US dollar bill, there's a pyramid that's not completed with an all-seeing eye. There's 72 bricks in that pyramid that they're trying to complete. And that's the other thing too, is it says, in God we trust. Well, depending on who you ask, who is their God? If you're asking a Freemason, in God we trust, versus a Christian, totally two different gods. So you have to, and that's controversial too, but that is because
No, that's
George Washington,
exactly what they mean. That is
George Washington
100%.
was George Washington, first president, is a Freemason. So those are the things that I learned. Is another example is, if I ask you a question, who discovered America? Depending on where you're standing, there's two correct answers. Most people would say Christopher Columbus discovered America. Well, what if you ask the American Indian who discovered America? He's going to say, nobody discovered me. I've always been here. So depending on how you ask it and where you're standing at that, you could get 2 correct answers, possibly even 3. So I've always, when I do my research, I kind of try to go that way is, depending on, when I research it, where, part of history, how am I asking it, that kind of thing. So, so it's been a good journey. Like I said, I may start doing a little bit more videos, but definitely more podcasts and radio shows. And I apologize to people out there that have asked me to come on, and I just hadn't. In the last year, I've just taken some time to kind of wind down. I've had a lot of loss in my family. I lost my father, my mother, aunt and uncle, just back to back in the last 2 years. So
I'm sorry to hear.
Spending time with, and that's part of life, but, really back to back, I just spend more time with my family and do that. So I appreciate you having me on today and sharing some things. And, I think it's very important for humanity of what, you're doing. And more than anything is, because figuring out where we came from, why we're here, and where we're going is, some of the biggest 3 questions that I had to answer is where did we come from, why are we here, and where are we going? And a lot of people don't ask those questions. They just exist and go through life, and so I appreciate your time.
The life on this earth is very, very short, and I think that what happens after this life is the most important thing that people must consider. Everything we do here will impact that. So we've today discussed a little bit, we've really just scratched the surface today, guys. I encourage everyone to go. This is Nicholson's YouTube channel. This is his Rumble, Nicholson 1968. We've put that on the interview, Nicholson, because we're really supporters of Rumble being somewhere, the only place we haven't been censored from, and also Nicholson1968.com. So I encourage everyone, go back, watch some of these videos. You can also find some of the similar amazing research from people like Steve Quayle and, Celeste Solom talking about this sort of stuff. We're certainly not done talking about it because humanity needs to be aware. And I think it's wise that you've taken the time to be with your family. That's what matters on this earth. But you haven't stopped your service to humanity. So we really appreciate that, Nicholson. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Introducing Droid DNA by HTC. It's not an upgrade to your phone, it's an upgrade to yourself.